Hello again. Specificity is one of the 3 pillars or 4 pillars or whatever pillars of training. And basically all it means is that the response you get to any training is specifically related to the training that you do. So if you want to get better at sprinting, then do some sprinting. And if you want to get better at lifting heavy weights, then going out on a bike for 6 hours is unlikely to improve your performance. Having said that, when you're starting out, specificity isn't particularly important. Just doing something that roughly relates to what you want to get better at is likely to help you get better. So when you start cycling, if you want to do endurance cycling, doing some cycling is going to make you better at cycling, improve your endurance and also improve the speed that you can cycle at. So this specificity thing only becomes important as you get closer to your limits. But how important is it? You quite often hear me talk about doing interval training sessions to prepare for long ultra endurance cycling events. Well, the reason for that is you're training specifically for a component of a long endurance cycling event. You might want to actually get faster at that event, and therefore riding faster will help you ride faster. So it is specific, but it's only specifically training a component of your particular requirements for that given goal. For super long events, it's not really possible to be totally specific. For example, if you want to do the race across America, you wouldn't race across America to prepare for it. You would break it down into components and train for those components and then put it all together and hope that you could last for the duration of the event. Or you might do some longer events. But of course these events take ages to recover from, so you can't do many of them. So specificity becomes increasingly important as you get closer to your limits. And there are limits to how you can use specificity, because if you're training for ultra endurance events like a lot of us are, then the amount of recovery time you require from doing a multi-day ride or training session negates the benefits to some extent. I mean, there obviously are benefits that knock onto your next multi-day event, but if you ride for a long time slowly, you're not likely to get faster at riding for a long time. So you have to do something else that helps you get faster. So you have to train specifically to get faster, not specifically for riding for a long time. And that brings us nicely onto the fact that there's a law of diminishing returns. So a good example might be if you like an FTP test, so a 20-minute test that a lot of people do to test their FTP. Well, if you want to get better at doing a 20-minute time trial, you might argue that the best thing to do is do 20-minute time trials. So you might do 2 20-minute time trials a week, or 3 20-minute time trials a week, or whatever you might do, and just keep doing that. And in theory, based on the rule of specificity, you would get better at doing 20-minute time trials. Well, that's true to an extent. You would get better at it. But anybody who's done loads of 10-mile time trials and not done much else will know that you start getting better, but then you reach a limit. So there's this law of diminishing returns. If you keep doing the same thing, you get better for a while, and then you stop getting better at it. You just stay the same. You just maintain rather than improve. I mean, you might get gradual improvements, but not major improvements. So you need to change the stimulus to upset your body a little bit differently and encourage it to change in a different way that's relevant to your ultimate goal, but might not be exactly what your ultimate goal is. So it's like doing strength training to improve your cycling. It's been shown that strength training even improves endurance performance. And of course that's not really specific, but it's a different stimulus that your body responds to, and it's sufficiently relevant to make a difference. Or maybe it's sufficiently specific to train one part of your physiology that supports the part of your physiology that needs to improve to get better at your 20-minute time trials, for instance, or whatever, or your endurance events. So strength training obviously is useful. We all know it's useful. We might not like doing it, which is the subject of Claire's video on my fitness journey, but we know it's important to do it, and if we do it, we'll probably get better. So after a while, when we get to this point of diminishing returns, we're looking for a different stimulus. And what is that stimulus? How should you change your training? How should you get better? Well, the thing to do is think specifically about your strengths and weaknesses. Where do you need to improve? If you're an endurance cyclist, you're looking to do long events, you might be struggling to meet the time cut-off. Well, if you can sit on the bike for long enough, like whatever it might be, 200 kilometers or 300 kilometers or several days, if you're bikepacking 16 hours a day, for example, in a bikepacking event or more, then you might have reached the point of diminishing returns in terms of how fast you can go. A lot of people come to me to try and get faster because they can do the distance for an ODAX event, for example, but they're struggling to get any sleep, or they're struggling to have any sort of breaks, or if something goes wrong, then they're snookered and they can't manage it, or they want to go further. So you might be able to manage a 300 or a 400 kilometre event without a break, but when you want to move up to doing 600 kilometres or a 1200 kilometre Grand Randonneur, or a 2-week bikepacking event like the Trans-Pyrenees, then you're in trouble because you can't get the breaks. You're not going fast enough to give yourself enough space to stop or even slow down a little bit. And at that point, the specificity rule becomes a bit more complicated. It becomes more nuanced, because at that point you're not really trying to improve your endurance, you're trying to get faster. So taking a step back and training your speed to get faster, doing interval training sessions, doing some shorter rides, 50 kilometres or something like that, or hilly rides if you're not so good at hills, to get faster, push the average speed up over shorter distance, and then try and move that into your longer events. As the weather improves, you might start building up the distance of your events, but not doing too many of the long events and focusing on getting a little bit faster might be a worthwhile aside to improve your overall performance. And to do that, you just do interval training sessions, shorter training sessions, shorter rides, go a bit faster. It can be a bit of fun actually to do some local time trials. That can help you get faster. It's sort of a way of making a harder training session more interesting. And there are a lot of 10 mile, 20k or 16 kilometre time trials around, run by local clubs, that you can get involved in. And it's a good way of measuring your performance. You probably don't do them every week, but doing one every couple of weeks, or doing a few and then having a break and then doing a few, it's a nice way to show your improvements as the season moves on. If they're on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, you've got plenty of time to recover and do something longer at the weekend and enjoy riding your bike for a long time, which is really what we all want to do. A good use of the specificity principle is to think specifically about your goal events, where you need to improve, and what things you need to do to make those improvements happen. And what you can do is think specifically about certain things you enjoy. So you might enjoy riding up hills fast or something like that, or you might doing short time trials, you might like Strava segments, or you might actually like interval sessions on an indoor trainer. Some people like that. Or you might like Zwift races, for example. So thinking a bit outside the conventions of what Trainer Road might tell you to do, or what the convention of, oh, you need to do 6 by 3 minute intervals to improve your VO2 max power or something like that. Thinking about what you actually like to do or you don't mind doing that will improve that particular component of your fitness might give you a much more interesting way into training than saying, oh, I've got to do interval sessions, or I've got to do this thing in a certain way. Because all you're really trying to do, if you want to get faster, all you're trying to do is ride faster for as long as possible to stimulate your body, give your body as much stimulus as you can, and then recover and then do it again. So this is where the specificity thinking is important. Think about the basic principles of what you're trying to do. And the reason you do intervals is that if you do something for slightly less than your limit, so you get close to your limit and then have a rest, you can probably do the same thing again and then have a rest and do the same thing again. So overall, you're giving your body more stimulus than if you did one full-on blast at that intensity. So all interval training does is give you a little bit more time, a little bit more stimulus, and that's why it works so effective, rather than just getting out and doing as hard as you can for a few minutes. But combining that with, blasting out a 20-minute ride or something can work really well. So you don't have to do intervals, you just do whatever works best for you. So that's it basically. Specificity is important. Specific components of your fitness that you need to train, and you need to be focusing specifically on those components to improve them, and that will improve your overall performance in your goal events. Hopefully all that makes sense. Please get in touch if you've got any questions, make some comments. I love the comments. I'd love to work with you if you want somebody to coach you. Claire and I have got a few spaces left if you want to join us for the upcoming season to help you work towards your goals. And of course there's the EBR Cycling Club, which is focused on endurance cyclists, helping endurance cyclists improve their performance and get towards the goals. And we're building a really nice community there, and we'd love you to be a member of that.